A mother grieves for her young children who suffered the most gruesome of deaths. 8 months on, she's tortured by those agonizing memories, the grief and pain, all too raw. Tahrir al-Salak told me her 2 young daughters, Ula and Malak, had come up to this rooftop during a ceasefire last July. She says an Israeli bomb suddenly struck. The flying shrapnel hit her kids as they were playing. Seven members of the al-Salak family died on the roof. Down below, as ambulances came to collect the injured, 2 more shells struck. A further 21 people were killed. The Israeli military closed the case after investigating, claiming they were responding to Hamas mortar fire in a measured, limited fashion. This one of hundreds of alleged war crimes during last year's Gaza conflict, when more than 2,000 Palestinians died, including 530 children. Nobody's been held to account for civilian casualties in this or other recent Gaza conflicts, but today things may have changed. For years, the Palestinians seeking justice considered joining the International Criminal Court. Today, they finally did, potentially paving the way for prosecutions to happen. Israel has not signed up to the court, but the ICC could have jurisdiction over its activities.
During and after Operation Protective Edge, the Israeli military has insisted it conducted precision strikes against military targets. But the huge number of civilian casualties and the vast scale of destruction has raised many questions, which war crimes investigators want answers to.
Central to investigations, Israel's policy of evacuating densely populated areas which suffered heavy bombardment. Israel insists warnings were issued via leaflet drops, phone and radio messages, but many question this policy. After weeks of investigation, Channel 4 News has spoken to an Israeli military source who had intimate knowledge of last year's operations as they unfolded. The account he's given fundamentally questions Israel's contention that it did everything it could to avoid civilian casualties. We've gone to great lengths to conceal his identity.
We were told that starting from, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, we're in and the civilians are out. They were already told to leave their homes, and from that point, 4 o'clock and after, there would be different rules about shooting in that area. The problem is, according to the rules, they would say there are no civilians in this area, and therefore we don't need to care how close the artillery is shooting to the people that actually might be on the streets.
Because they considered that place had been emptied, therefore it's a military target.
Correct.
Was it being taken into account that there might be old people or children or sick people in these buildings and it would be very hard for them to move?
No, not at all. Again, it was considered to be an area with no citizens at all. No conversations about the possibility that there is one single person there or a whole family that was left behind. And no one was actually having this discussion, whether these people here are civilians or terrorists. The assumption was, if they are in this area, they are terrorists.
If you look at the way things were conducted, Israel has targeted civilian neighborhoods without providing any safe corridor and any safe haven. It didn't take into account the fact that there might be sick people there, old people there, children there, and healthy people who just would not leave there, old people, sick members of family and children. So the idea that you can just make precautionary measures, but then don't care about who have stayed in the area you're targeting is a war crime.
We put these accusations to the Israeli Defense Forces.
We made radio announcements, we made phone calls, we made text messages, individual text messages, and we scattered leaflets. Don't belittle that. You know, again, that is well beyond the requirements of the law. That is well beyond the requirements of the law.
What about old,
enable
sick people, children who can't move? What happens to them? Are they then legitimate targets? What if they can't move?
No, of course not. I mean, when we made the calls up, when we text messages, when we dropped the leaflets so that people would evacuate. We went to the best of our capability.
Best of your capability, but
To
you didn't know that
evacuate
they'd
the
been
area.
evacuated.
We didn't know that they were not.
Also under scrutiny, the so-called knock on the roof. The warning given to residents to leave targeted buildings before a major airstrike. In this case, a 2-minute gap. But Palestinians say the short time between strikes meant people could not always get out safely.
We carried out extensive efforts in order to vacate
But you
civilian
don't know
premises.
that the building is cleared. You don't know.
We know what we know.
Which is what?
Within reasonable
Okay, but you
category
don't know
in order
that
to
building is
confirm
cleared. You don't know that building is
the
cleared.
extensive measures that we had carried out were complete.
Okay, but you don't know for sure it's cleared.
We know that there is a military target there.
Okay, but you don't know it's cleared of people.
But we know that there is a military target there specifically.
So that justifies
a
it.
legitimate military
So it
target.
justifies any other casualties.
It justifies after we've completed our process, which is well beyond what other militaries do.
Hamas also stands accused of war crimes. An Amnesty International report has accused Hamas of indiscriminately targeting Israeli civilians with rocket fire. Israel insists Hamas fired from populated areas and its military responded in self-defense. The focus for thousands in Gaza is on bringing Israeli soldiers and politicians to justice. The Israeli military says it's investigating 19 criminal cases. But human rights groups say the Israeli military shouldn't be investigating itself and alleges they will not probe policy decisions made by top leaders. As they once again try to rebuild their shattered lives, the people of Gaza now hold out some hope that Israel might be held to account at the ICC. The wheels of justice grind slowly at the court, but after the agony they've endured, people here say they're prepared to wait.